In December 1978, China began its new policy of economic reform and opening up. The effect of this has been witnessed by all of us. We have seen its overwhelming development and the cost of such progress that the country has to bear. Born and raised in China, I switched from clinical medicine to photography when moving to the UK in 2005. Facing a post-industrial landscape radically different from China, I quickly developed and have since maintained an interest in the contested conditions of nature in diverse societies. Since 2010, I have been working on and with landscape photography to examine various issues to do with national identity, myth, and the environment. My project, Forest, was produced within this context. In 2011, during a field trip for my other project, Mother River, I noticed something strange in Chongqing, a megacity with 30 million people. Among the concrete forest of the city, I kept seeing bare, old trees, propped up, roped in, and injected with nutrition bags. A battlefield with injured, bleeding soldiers. Yet they were all standing at grand new sites, which were often still under construction. I intuitively began to make very formal compositions of the rigid urban design, emphasizing the unnaturalness of such constructed nature. A familiar sight, posters, quickly explained the cause behind this puzzling landscape. Historically, a city of natural beauty amid mountains and around rivers, Chongqing's new ambition was to construct the most modern infrastructure and living. Among the 5 ideals promoted by the city's government in 2011, a forest city was a primary goal, followed by visions to have a safe and healthy city with an excellent transportation system. However, the concrete buildings grow much faster than trees. To solve the problem, tens and thousands of mature trees were sourced nationally and internationally. They were traded and transplanted into the new city to make ready-made forests. Questions rose immediately. Whose trees were they? What happened to their homeland? Who was making money from the tree-dealing business? With whose money? Would the trees survive? In short, I was interested in the politics and the environmental implication of such urban greening projects. How to dig deeper into the roots of these new forests. One key method I used was repeat photography. I would follow the development of certain transplanted trees over a number of years with a view to discover something new or more in-depth on the way. It was within this context that I discovered Frank, the oldest and the only tree that I photographed before transplantation. Frank's story started in this picture in March 2013, when the 300-year-old tree was still standing at his home. However, a Yangtze River dam nearby was soon to flood the entire village. I seen in a line of red propaganda slogan underneath Frank's canopy. The villagers were encouraged to move out early in order to resettle early and to get rich early. 3 months later, when I found Frank again 100 kilometers away from its old home. It stood on a desert-looking land without its crown, waiting to glorify a five-star hotel yet to be built. According to its village people, Frank and 3 other century-old trees were sold together for $12,000. Each family had a share of the money, which would contribute to the cost of building their new homes. Then, 4 years later, after these initial photographs, the surrounding city had been built up, yet Frank had gone down. It had died 2 years ago. Only the mound of red soil that it once stood in remained. As commented by the British curator Thomas Jokes, quote, "This story starts at home, moves through development, and results in the failure of transplanting the tree. An incredibly neat tragedy." End quote. In this tragedy, Frank changed from part of someone's homeland to a commodity, a trophy, to increase attraction of a luxury lifestyle. And Goldie, a fake old tree, can be seen as another trophy. Goldie was made up with 15 young trees, a flower tree, and some water pipes. They were bandaged together and planted in the courtyard of a 4-star hotel that wanted aged trees but didn't want to pay for them. Golden fabric was wrapped around the new conglomerate to give it a deceptively old look. If everything goes well, in another 2 years' time, the roots of these young trees will join together and they will become one tree, Goldie. Such case studies of micro-incidents are beginning to untangle the politics of the constructed nature in new urban China. The landscapes I photographed are political landscapes reflecting the ideology of rapid economic growth, which has disguised its form and hidden behind grand narratives. The trees are the tokens of our relationship to nature, while the idea of green living as commodity became increasingly visible. With Frank and Goldie, I began to ask new questions. Why are we attracted to old trees? Is there still a belief in a social, ecological interdependence in the new city? To the city dwellers in a landscape born out of total design instead of gradual life, are fragments of history and the memory of homeland still important? The evolution of Egongyan area helps me to contemplate on such questions. These are a set of 5 pictures taken in Egongyan area. This one was in March 2011. This one was from the apartment block underneath the bridge, taken in 2012. The same area in 2014. Back on the bridge in 2017. And down the bridge in 2017. It appears that in the concrete underpassage of Egongyan Park, a brutal beginning of transplantation, displacement, and migration was slowly evolving into life and its daily chores. The children will remember this as their homeland, with the trees already in place since their memory begins. Such time-based observation allowed new possibilities. in keeping my own emotions in check and helping me to take in other evolving landscapes. The gradual unfolding of the tree stories slowly became a human story. The pursuit for nature tells us more about human nature. These pictures became a new turning point of the project. I decided to stand further back while embracing the new urban life. While maintaining a topographic stare, I gradually developed a more storytelling, tableau-style visual strategy. From tragedy, I almost began to photograph comedy. Often, the new trees were taken for granted. Occasionally, plastic trees would have more attention than organic ones. Other times, the city scenes reminded me of terrors from other eras, repeated in contemporary times. Despite a traumatic past, the new nature has settled into the city. Acting as a tree spotter, I walked through the dense layers of the urban jungle, observed, discovered, reflected, and photographed. In the final edit of the project, plates with precise compositions were sequenced together to tell the multi-layered story of the new urban nature. The human desire to engineer the landscape was pushed to a new limit at Haidong Development Zone in Dali, Yunnan Province, which still was a ghost town in 2017 after 7 years construction. Here, a small rural area is being urbanized systematically to create an international leisure town and an ecology model town. In doing so, the topsoil of the entire area is replaced by a type of red semi-artificial soil, which forms the base for introduced plants, including many mature trees. Meanwhile, green plastic netting is used to stabilize new slopes and to cover everything unappealing to the eye. From construction waste to disused quarries. The town's objective here seems to have shifted from an ecological one to a cosmetic one. Haidong's landscape results from China's new central policy of promoting a green, circular, and low-carbon development, which was formally introduced since 2012 as China's response to the global issues of climate change and sustainable development. But how sustainable is such development? Last summer, I went back to Dali for a follow-up session. Interestingly, the effects of the expensive ecology recovery makeover does not make large format pictures anymore. It was a more immersive and micro way of looking that told me more about the actual nature of the project. with keywords such as violence, abandonment, and chaos. How long will it take for nature to settle back in? Or will there be another round of making over? I suppose it is too early to know. But the discovery in Dali has pointed out a new direction for my work, which is to consider such projects in a wider context of the global conservation efforts, including ecology recovery, renaturalization, and rewilding. Last summer, I discovered a renaturalization project at Dongbu Quarry, less than an hour away from Beijing. Brutally quarried hills form a landscape similar to some of the European icons, for example, the Dolomites. The additional monoculture formed by recently planted trees and meadows gave the area a confusing impression. A strange wilderness that appeared more dead than alive at its current state. Such neo-wilderness inspired me to use black and white photography, as seen in early landscape photography. When the visualization of a pristine nature became popular within the general public. I went further away from a documentary approach and added something into the picture. I'm sure that you can see the reference here. To conclude, how to generate a pictorial understanding of such reconstructed wilderness. This is my current research question. And I welcome your questions, comments, and suggestions. Finally, forest will be on show as part of the PhotoFest Biennale in the exhibition 10 by 10. 10 curators select 10 portfolios from the Meeting Place 2018. It was selected by Matthew Clark. The exhibition will open to the public from tonight with the grand opening of PhotoFest. The private viewing for 10 by 10 is on next Saturday, 14th of March. I'm very sorry for not being there, but please pop in if you can. Meanwhile, you can see the entire project on my website and from my book, Forest. Thank you.